I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch a lot of movies in theaters for 2024. It's a surprise considering last year in 2023 I saw 12, but this year I saw just 5, which is a surprise. To be fair, it's mainly due to personal issues, and a lot of the selection I just didn't have the opportunity to watch. It does sadden me because I do enjoy everything about movies, especially when it's on a giant screen. Yeah, a lot of the movies I saw, with a few exceptions, were at home, mainly on streaming. But I want to be fair and make this review video with all the new movies I have watched in 2024, and I will still include those I didn't get to see in theaters, but made up for it at home. Also, I will be going into minor spoilers for the movies I review, so if you haven't watched any of them, I recommend not watching the video. You can watch the movies and form your own opinion, and I will be going in order of the movies I saw chronologically in order from the beginning of the year all the way to the end. So, let's do this. Dune Part Two, directed by Denis Villeneuve. 9 out of 10. I can't say I'm the biggest Dune expert as I have never read the original novels by Frank Herbert, but on its own, Denis' movies stand on its own to tell the story of Paul and his fall and rise into the savior, in big quotations, for the Fremen people of Arrakis. I did enjoy the first Dune movie, even if it did struggle by the ending for being open for its sequel, not being fulfilling, but a lot of the first Dune flawlessly connects to the second movie, and its pacing slowly builds up over time, and when you look at them both as one big film together, it all makes sense. Paul's arc from a shy and pretty feeble rich boy into this powerful yet corrupt warrior is so interesting, and Timothée Chalamet gives that performance well. A lot of the cast is amazing. Zendaya as Shani is impressive and is one of the times where she shows her emotion and skill at new heights compared to other things, like in the MCU. I still like her as MJ though. Austin Butler is both funny but pretty terrifying as Foydrata with his skill, violence, just the presence he has really steals the scenes. Everybody else in the movie also gives great performances: Javier Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson, and of course Stellan Skarsgård. The visual effects are just immaculate as well. The scale of everything is hard to not appreciate, especially when it combines with the fight scenes, the booming score. Dune Part Two's presentation is a strong continuation of the first movie that has so much left to speculate for the next and final installment to the story of Dune. Admittedly, I still find it hard to understand all the logic of its world, as it's all a giant mystery to me at least. But I do think these movies are such amazing experiences, especially for me when I was just in my theater seat in astonishment, and I am excited for the next installment. Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino. 8 out of 10. I haven't seen a lot of Lucas films. The only one I recall was Call Me By Your Name, which was pretty great. And going into Challengers, not knowing much other than the cast, I was left still enjoying the direction, electronic soundtrack, camera work, and the performances from the three cast that carried it with this strange plot involving tennis. The plot does have a lot of cuts to flashbacks for a majority of the movie until it finally catches up with the present, which was a bit hard for it to wrap around my peanut-sized brain, but I think I understood by the end what was going on. Challengers is held up really well by its style and web of timelines that maybe not everyone enjoyed, especially with this whole relationship of confusion, but I was along for the ride. Once again, Zendaya, Mike Feist, and Josh O'Connor did amazing jobs portraying these real flawed people whose passions for their sport is wrapped in this spiral of love and cheating, which is conflicting, but I still saw as interesting. Maybe not everybody might get it, which is understandable, but it's still a unique experience. Challengers is an interesting movie with solid performances, a killer soundtrack, and a strange story surrounding tennis, triangles, and passion. Very sweaty passion. Seriously, everyone's really sweaty in this movie. I could pretty much smell Josh O'Connor through my TV screen. Ugh. Anyway, give it a watch. Inside Out 2, directed by Kelsey Mann. 8 out of 10. I actually really like the first Inside Out. It's not my favorite Pixar film, but I enjoyed it a lot. I was a little skeptical going into the second movie, especially since Pixar sequels are a mixed bag. You either get something really great, or Incredibles 2. But Inside Out 2? It's actually great. They extended on the logic of the emotions, and adding more makes sense as getting older does involve more complex emotions in your head. The focus of anxiety being an antagonist, less out of maliciousness and more of trying to survive hockey camp, was fitting. Most of the new emotions take a bit of a backseat as well because of anxiety, but I guess that's the point of the movie in a way. I do love how much the world of the movie in Riley's head has been stretched out even more. I was worried it was going to repeat the same thing as last time because the original motions were kicked out of the headquarters, so we'll have the same journey of them going through the same kind of issues. But the new obstacles and ideas kept it interesting. I'm glad the original emotions do have an impact on the plot more, and even Riley has more interference as well, by the end showing that your emotions should not always be in charge. You should choose how you feel, and I think that's cool. It's a shame the other new emotions, aside from maybe embarrassment, don't give much to the plot aside from just sitting around. Other than those things, Inside Out 2 was a great sequel and a continuation of this world of emotions. The animation and music is lovely, and despite the troubled production, god damn it, Disney. I'm glad the movie came out the way that it did, and everyone deserves love and credit for their work. Except for Disney. Stand with the Animation Guild. The Wild Robot, directed by Chris Sanders. 9 out of 10. The excitement I had for this movie was real. The moment the first trailer for The Wild Robot came out, I and others were hooked. The hype for the movie did come true when I finally saw it in theaters, and was astounded by the gorgeous animation, the beautiful soundtrack. The humor was actually funny. The characters were good. There's a lot I can compliment this movie for what it does. The development of Roz's character from a neutral robot with no sense of fear or care into a loving mother was done perfectly, especially with Lupita Nyong'o's performance paired with her design and animation. Fink, Brightbill, all of them give the story such life, especially with how different they are. There are scenes in this movie that moved me, such as Brightbill's flight, the climax, and of course the ending. I was on the verge of tearing up, literally. The tone of this movie is bright and humorous, but it isn't afraid to get a little dark in some parts to show the brutality of nature. I admittedly wasn't a big fan of the last-minute antagonist of Vantra, where she just shows up and almost immediately is disposed of. The final climax felt a tad rushed, but I didn't hate it, especially the moment of heart between Roz and Brightbill, not to forget the whole force coming together and fighting against the other threats to protect Roz. It was great to see. Overall, The Wild Robot is personally my favorite movie of the year. Everything about it is so heartwarming, fun, serious, and entertaining. I'll be happy to rewatch this movie, and I think this deserves all the love it gets, especially for all the hardworking people at DreamWorks that put so much effort into it. I Saw the TV Glow, directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. 8 out of 10. This is a weird movie, but not for the wrong reasons. It's a unique kind of horror that feels uncanny and a little wrong. It's almost dreamlike with its performances complementing it, especially by Justice Smith. The movie follows the life of Owen and demonstrates their life through conflicting identities in a world that you are forced into, sometimes by others or maybe just self-doubt and caving in. I love the directing. It's full of both color and dull darkness and feels so real yet unnatural. The story maybe was a bit hard to comprehend for a first-time watch, but it took some time and also some perspective to get an idea for what I Saw the TV Glow was going for. I think by the end of the movie, with the last few minutes, it's sad, and I think once again Justice Smith portrays this pain in a loud and uncomfortable way. This film is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Maybe you or somebody else won't understand, but I think Jane's work here is compelling, especially for young people that struggle in life with identity and being part of something, even when you get older. I'm interested in more of their work, and this movie is an example of something terrifying yet beautiful. For my fellow people of pride and lovers of horror, give it a watch. Wicked Part 1, directed by John M. Chu. 8 out of 10. I have never actually listened to Wicked beforehand. I have never read the story, seen the musical, or even listened to the soundtrack on its own. So I went into the theater completely blind. And I will admit, I loved it a lot. On a matter of scale, the sets, makeup, and costuming, it's all beautiful and full of detail. The CGI is admittedly pretty good. It's kinda hard to make a talking goat with clothing and glasses not look ridiculous, but I think it worked. All the performances are fantastic. I love Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande's dynamics as Alphaba and Glinda. The supporting cast like Michelle Yeoh and Jeff Goldblum as Morrible and the Wizard was also pretty nice to see, and it was a surprise to see Goldblum pop up near the end. I didn't even know. The music in the movie is performed excellently. Even though I never listened to Wicked beforehand, I was still jamming to most of the music and was moved by the heartfelt ones like The Wizard and I, and of course Defying Gravity. Considering the movie is a two-parter, it's hard to say for certain how satisfying the story is because the plot is not complete, but I was still on the edge of my seat by the end when the score got more intense. I can compliment the movie on those things. But I am divided on the directing for Wicked as a whole, especially the whole meme that went around with the movie's lighting and colors. Sometimes the musical sequences and settings looked gorgeous and full of life with great movement to pair with the songs. Other times, the lights blaring in my eyes were distracting, and for the love of God, could we have a bit of saturation? It's a musical, for God's sake. But despite those issues, Wicked is still a great time. I may not fully know the original story or listen to the rest of the songs. Wicked is not a musical I, for one, had the most interest in, but I'm still excited to see the next part in 2025. Hopefully that'll be great as well. Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez. 8 out of 10. This is a solid horror sci-fi movie. I wasn't that big of a fan of the last few Alien movies like Prometheus or especially Covenant. They were confusing and very forgettable aside from that brief body horror. But Romulus was a nice callback to the original movie, but still combining the things that made the original movies work. The special effects were amazing. Aside from the deep fake Ian Holmes, that was really weird and turned me off a lot. I'd rather they have done someone different or remove Rook entirely, but that's a whole can of worms. But still, I think the visuals in Romulus were impressive, especially with the small budget it has in comparison to other movies. Everything about it is great, including the cast of characters like Andy and Rain, which I really felt bad for, and was rooting to make it till the end. The characters do have some dumb moments, but it's not as egregious and admittedly we're done for some reason of fear, especially when everything does go wrong. I was honestly surprised by the soundtrack as well. Most of it was very symphonic with these large orchestras instead of a modern synthy sound, but I dug it a lot. Still kept that classic vibe. For most of the movie, Romulus feels pretty standard with the great horror setting to it, with some really creative scenes. But it wasn't until the last 30 minutes which changed everything for me, where I was just sitting in my chair and I went, ew. But it was such a cool climax and ending as well. Alien Romulus was a solid return to form for the Alien movies with its violence, effects, simple story but mostly stuck the landing. A pretty scary, gory, and visually stunning horror movie that I recommend, especially for that ending. Sonic the Hedgehog 3, directed by Jeff Fowler. 8 out of 10. This was a fun movie. I have seen all the Sonic movies in theaters as of now, and each time I would have such a big grin on my face, having a good time despite how flawed they are. They can be funny, but also have some really poor jokes. Sometimes the pacing can be a bit weird, the logic can be confusing, but I learned to embrace the odd nature of these movies, and I think the third movie is no different. But Sonic 3 is the best so far because of the stakes and lore that were introduced with this movie, and debuting Shadow as well, with his backstory, was a nice add-on that clashes with Sonic's fun attitude. It was great to see Jim Carrey return once again for not one, but two Robotniks in both roles. Their scenes were especially the funniest. Other than those things, I still found myself not digging the first act, as it was a tad rushed, as it immediately jumped into the conflict with Shadow, but I still loved the opening when he broke out. That was cool. It was weird how Robotnik flip-flopped between working with Sonic then immediately betraying him when he sees his grandfather, but it made up for it as well with its entertainment value. Finally seeing Shadow in movie form, I was a little skeptical because of his tragic story, which I thought they probably would have dumbed down, but I think they mostly handled it well, even with actually killing Maria to solidify his hatred overall. Those flashbacks were some of the best scenes. Aside from Sonic and Shadow's parts, I wish Knuckles and Tails had more of an impact. They still had fun bits, but other than Knuckles' usual moments of brute force, I want to see Tails do more other than just use his gadgets. But it was funny to see him pilot a helicopter in the beginning with that giant helmet on his head. The rest of the movie is still fun as it once again becomes a race against the clock, and the stakes somehow get even bigger this time. Even now, the final climax had my jaw on the floor as everything was just pure chills all around. I enjoyed so much all the way till the ending, which once again I was smiling ear to ear. And I am so excited for the next Sonic film. I love these movies and I will constantly go back to watch them for their love for the Sonic franchise and just being a good time as well. Nosferatu, directed by Robert Eggers. 8 out of 10. I love Eggers' work. He's an amazing director and writer, and I was excited for this movie for so long. Combining his work with this classic vampire tale was a dream come true, and I left really enjoying the experience. Visually, the set design, cinematography, costuming, the look of the movie is gorgeous and historically accurate as usual from Robert Eggers' love for detail. The soundtrack is gorgeous with its classical music that is both beautiful and haunting paired with the sound design. The story, once again, mostly simple, as it's another case of Edgar taking an existing story and trying to twist it a little, like what he did with the story of Amleth for his last film, The Northman, which I also really enjoyed. I usually love Edgar's use of horror, but personally I wasn't scared from this movie. I did enjoy all the parts of slow tension, but I wasn't terrified the whole way through. Even with how intimidating the villain of the film is, I wasn't jumping out of my theater seat. The movie had a really good pace to it from the start, which was slow and haunting, but picked up a little, which got a bit messy once Thomas got back to Germany, which was just the characters sitting around waiting to be screwed over by Count Orlok. And Skarsgård's performance was amazing as Orlok. His voice was deep and booming. The outfit he wore was large and made his silhouette intimidating, and he was bathed in shadows which helped him stay mysterious. Although, the mustache he had kinda threw me off. I don't know, I wasn't much of a fan of it, and kinda stood out a little from all the cool, gross makeup he had. But it's not just him. I think the rest of the cast, like Lily Rose Depp and Nicholas Holt's performances, were stellar, and you can see the fear and desperation from them over the film's progression. Other than the story, which I still liked, but was bogged down a little by its messiness showing near the end, everything else about Nosferatu was amazing, and I still found myself enjoying the experience it brought. While not as terrifying as Eggers' previous work, which is saying something, it still keeps his style of realism mixed with insanity and mystery of this world. It's a great experience that still doesn't deter me from his work as a talented director and writer. It's not for everyone, but I enjoyed Nosferatu, and it was a fun movie to watch for the holiday season.
Seriously, it still confuses me that they released it on Christmas. Christmas?
Well, those were all the new movies I saw in 2024. While I didn't watch as many as I wanted to in theaters, I still made up for it by watching and enjoying a lot of them at home. I do think despite the amount of flops for a lot of movies that get released, home releases shouldn't mean deaths for those films, and it's why we have TVs at home, other than playing games or something. But I still enjoyed a lot of the films I watched this year, and I'm excited to see more of the movies that come out in 2025. I don't know what else I could possibly watch, but I'm excited to go into it and also do another one of these movie review videos. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video as well. If you have your own thoughts on these movies that came out, let me know down below. If you like this little artwork of me, you should check out my Ko-Fi page and look into my current commission page to get some art and voice acting stuff from me. Thanks again for watching, and have a good day.
Hell yeah, I watched Joker Folie à Deux. It sucked, it was pointless, and I want my 2 hours back, Todd. 4 out of 10.